welcome to video 1 of our baby vest, leather armor, little baby armor here. So first thing I want to say is, while you're learning with me doing this, I'm also kind of learning how to do all this video shooting, so hopefully everything will come out looking good and you'll be able to follow along. With that said, first thing we're going to do is mark out our pattern. Now, here I have my pattern for the baby vest armor. You can get this pattern on my Gumroad account, which I'll list in the video description. If you'd like to do that, or you can try to recreate something yourself using Photoshop or GIMP or something like that. I have a 11 by 17 printer, and that seems to have worked out great for anything that I've needed to do. Okay, this right here, just so people know, is called underlayment. It's a product used to put in between like hardwood flooring, but I've found it's a great material for pattern making. That said, the reason being is you can mold it, form it however you need to, and it has a lot of rigidity though to be able to withstand actually putting in brads to simulate rivets, buckles, and all those kind of things. So you can actually kind of make the armor first, almost what do they call it in dressmaking? You can kind of use this really cheaper fabric, make it first, make your item, make sure everything's going to work. Once that's good, hey, this pattern is going to work and everything's going to work for me. That's what this underlayment is good for. So, all that to say, I have my front pieces here, the left and the right. This is the back piece. This is one solid piece. And these are the pieces that will go on the shoulder to make the pauldron. Okay. Now, the thing with cutting out patterns is you want to make sure that you don't just throw things down any old way. I'm going to put this over here, this here, and these whatever. You want to try to maximize the amount of space you have by really finding the best way to lay out your pieces so they take up as little extra space as possible, because you want to try to leave as much remnant as you can for future projects. That said, you do also want to consider the grain of your leather at the same time. As you can see, this leather has a particular grain or pattern that runs this way, has this little extra bit, has some marks that go down through here. Of course, what's nice with the more kind of stuff that we're doing with LARP and cosplay, sometimes it's okay to have things look more rough and rugged because you want them to look used. So you can kind of get away with not having to really follow the grain all the time. You can mix and match a little bit and just have fun with the natural look of the leather. Now, this is 4-ounce leather. The reason why it's 4 ounce, it's just referring to the thickness here. There's a chart that talks about what all the ounces and what they refer to, or how they reference the thickness of the leather. I can't remember right off the top of my head. I just know everything by feel at this point. I just know I can feel it and go, yeah, that's about 4 ounce. Oh, that's 8 ounce. That's 10 ounce, so on and so forth. So for this, since it's going on my son, I figured, hey, I'll go with 4-ounce leather. Things I would make for myself, it's going to be armor. It's generally going to be that 8 to 10 ounce range. All right. So we've kind of look at the grain here. I think what I would like to do is put it this way. Let's flip it this way. I'm going to lay down my back piece first. Okay. And I just use a standard ballpoint pen to mark out the pattern. Some people are going to use maybe chalks or other different writing utensils. A guy that taught me, who took one of his classes, he actually marks everything on the front, which is fine because a lot of times you're going to be doing beveled edges and those kind of things, so you actually end up removing a lot of the stray marks. I just can't bring myself to do it. Whoop, just lost all my patterns. I can't bring myself to do that, so I had to do it on the back. It served me well, and I'll continue to do that. So let's begin marking. Another great thing about the underlayment is since it has a more of a thickness to it, I can just run my pen along the edges and not worried about any kind of weird slippage. You don't have to be too precise on this. You're not trying to get perfect lines. You're just wanting to get that general shape down. Also with my pattern, I've marked all of the places where I'm going to tie everything together. So for my son's case, I'm not going to rivet this. I'm going to actually just use suede ties. That way, as either he gets, if he gets bigger as I'm making this thing or what have you, I can use the suede ties to make things bigger or smaller and adjust things as accordingly, and not really make things super what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out, everybody. Type in the chat. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh well. So this is the back, and I'm just going to go ahead and write that back, and that's fine. It's going to be on the inside, so I can write down what all that is. Okay. Next up, I'm going to put this is the, I don't know how to pronounce it necessarily. It's either the lame or the lame, but it's the part that's going to be right above the elbow. I'm going to put that right here. Okay. Set that to the side. And then try to figure out. Obviously, what you need to be careful here when you have pieces like this that are mirrored, you want to make sure that you don't put them facing the same way, because you're just basically making the same piece. So in this case, I'm using this kind of as a guide. This is the one side of the underlayment. It's going to remind that, okay, this is the back side of that. So I can probably get away with something like this, yeah? Let's make sure we're still kind of running the same grain. So we'll do it like that. One thing you want to be careful is sometimes on the edges, you can get these waves, and that can be hard to get out of your leather. So just want to be you just want to be careful of that. Actually, I want to do it like this. Okay. I'm trying to get, kind of close to these as possible. Again, we're trying to reduce the amount of extra remnant space. Just want to make sure I'm maximizing the amount of leather. Leather can be expensive, so we don't want to waste too much if we can help it. Get the most out of it as possible. All right, let's mark these. These are going to be where it's tied in front. Boop, 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 boop. And this is where it's going to connect to these sides here. And then it connects there. Okay. Again, I'm not trying to be super precise. With my lines, that'll come when I actually cut everything out using rulers and all that kind of stuff. It'll kind of clean up. So I don't want to be too wild. I want to have a pretty good markings. Okay. And just like that. Okay. And finally, this is the actual pauldron piece. Sorry, I think I hit my mic there, so. So, one thing I didn't do on purpose with the shoulder pieces is I didn't mark how these are all going to be tied together just yet. I'll wait to do that once it's finished because we're going to do straps and those kind of things. So don't want to mark in how these are going to connect just yet. That said, I will mark each side that this is the neck. Neck side, this is the shoulder side, and of this side here, this is the elbow, this is the shoulder side. Okay, so I just wanted to mark those so as I knew, so I can kind of reference back, okay, this is how these are all going to be, and this is, make sure I don't screw things up later. All right, so that's marking the leather. Pretty simple process. You're just trying to, find the right leather, flip it around, put your patterns down. You can use just regular paper if you want. It does work. Some people use cardboard stock. That's fine too. Whatever's going to work best for you. But again, I found underlayment to be the best for me. It is kind of a two-step process, obviously, because you're printing it out on paper. You're transferring it to the underlayment, and then you transfer from the underlayment to the leather, but in the end, I think you have a really good product. Okay, so next up, cutting all the pieces out. We'll see you then.